Hey everybody, old folks here. So I want to do another part in the series on strengths and weaknesses. Going to look at the tanks today. Monday next week I'll pick up, probably start the mages, go down from there. So I want to talk about tanks. Now obviously these are the meat shields which allow the rest of your team to do their job, but some of them are actually pretty beneficial and can help you out a lot as far as damage and other abilities. Chavez is probably considered one of the best free tanks next to Kaiser that's currently out there. I'm not going to get into ranking. I've done it a lot of time. It changes as they buff people, give people awakenings like Poulon. You know, Poulon became a lot better when he got his awakening. So let's just kind of dive in right now with Chavez. Now Chavez is known for his ability to heal himself plus magic resist your team. It's a great little skill. It just stinks because if there's no one else on the battlefield but him, he's never going to ultimate. So you might get down to him versus someone else, and it basically becomes a sword fight, and a lot of times you're going to lose if it's a certain person that can heal themselves because Chavez is never going to use it. Also, sometimes the positioning is kind of meh, and the times that he uses it is sometimes also. You don't always want him to use it when he does, because then people dive into your back line, midline, because he used it when he didn't need it. But we'll not worry about that. Weapon Storm obviously does a really good amount of damage. This is great because he jumps to that midline and, you know, hits everybody in that. That's why a lot of times you'll see him against Pagani teams, because he jumps back there and helps destroy him quicker. He also stuns the person he jumps behind, which is always nice. And then his critical strike is increased by big time. And he also gets some increases to his health regen with this. His captain skill is Stone Skin. I currently have it maxed out, and that probably makes him one of the more appreciative sides of a captain skill for just increasing damage. Obviously, his Ethereal Shield is great against the Wings of Origin team when partnered with another tank, because he can't use it on himself. That's one of the downsides of this. You can't use it on yourself. You have to use it on somebody else. But overall, Chavez is a really great tank. His weaknesses is that he doesn't provide any stuns outside of his initial jump, and he also sometimes can be glitched in how he is pushed or jumped, or if that target moves, or where he ends up. You just never know. I've seen him do his thing on another Chavez that jumped, or a Charon that jumped, and then he ends up in the middle of your back line, which does you absolutely no good. So it's kind of a little sketchy. Obviously, we can blame it on bad programming. I don't know. But for a tank, he does his job well. You know, you look at his attributes. He's got great health. He's got great armor. He's got great magic resist. So, I mean, he does a pretty good little job. His dodge is nice and everything else. It works well with magic teams, physical teams. He's pretty much a well-rounded, solid tank. Just remember, once he's by himself, he pretty much sucks because he's not going to ultimate to heal himself, unlike a Jacob or some of the others, which is kind of painful. So I like Chavez a lot. I'm not going to get into Charon because he's a legendary. There's a video on that. I do like him. That's about it. Sizo, I can't talk about you. Smoke, can't talk about you. Kaiser, here we go. Kaiser. Now, if you watched my videos in the past, you know Kaiser is probably one of my favorites of all time. He is a phenomenal tank. He has the great ability to, if you look at his skills, knock everybody back and do damage, which is always nice. He has this taunt, which does damage, which is really great because it helps keep people on him. His job's to tank, and that's what it does. And it can also interrupt skills. It's really nice. His favor basically gives his allies an increased chance to dodge. Sorry, let me say that again. It restores their health and increases their dodge rate for himself. So basically, it heals them, and it also helps him dodge more. So it's kind of cool because who doesn't like it when he throws your teammate a banana and it gives him some health. Finally, his guerrilla tactics basically says if a teammate dodges an attack, Kaiser will make that unit regen some health. Of course, there's a limit to it, but still, again, he's helping your team to heal when they dodge. If you're fighting alongside other monster or other animal classes, which he himself gets part of, you're going to get a nice little chunk of magic resist, which makes him really great against magic teams. Tossing that, his agility captain skill, it really helps him out a lot as far as keeping the healing alive. You'll see him a lot of times continually heal over and over and over, and especially when combined with the Behemoth shield from the Behemoth set and the Dragon Beast Souls, it makes him a powerful tank. Now, that said, he does have some downsides. Obviously, with the new dodge counter meta that some people are doing, it does hurt him some because everything is based around dodging. You also don't want to face a Sizo or anyone else with a true strike captain skill, because it will tear your team apart. There's nothing funnier than watching a video of someone running a max Kaiser with a max captain skill go up against a max true strike captain, and they get demolished. So overall, if you're not going to pick Chavez, you're probably going to pick Kaiser as your main tank, just because he really fits in as one of the better ones out there. Item-wise, it's really kind of up to you which way you want to go. Up until you get about orange, it's pretty easy pickings on how you're going to end up. Usually most people end up here with the Sapphire Scepter. And then from here in orange 2, it's really kind of dependent on what you're facing. Monk Sung, we don't need you. Jason. Now Jason, oh, I get to put you at 3-star. Yay! Jason still does not get a lot of love by people. I actually have a friend who has him orange 4. And he's a phenomenal tank. He shuts down sleep teams. That is his job. He also stacks very well with a Vortex or an energy drain team. So don't discount this guy because, you know, he's only 3 stars. You know, he still has pretty good attributes. Sure, he's only got 74,000, 75,000 health at this level. But as you slowly get a chance and an opportunity to get more of his stars, he's going to be a great tank. Consider the fact that usually, you know, he's also going to be partnered with another tank if you're facing a Wings of Origin team. It just helps to keep him alive and do damage. Now, where he's going to end up in the grand scheme of life, we really don't know, because we are wanting to see what a 5-star plus really can do. Until there, don't discount him. You know, this is probably one of the few that I'm going to raise for a while. You know, you obviously see him at level 89. He's orange. I'm keeping him there, and I only pull him out when I face a sleep team. But when I pull him out, even though he's only 2-3 stars now, he allows me to beat that sleep team like it's nothing. So, weaknesses are he's terrible against AE teams, because AE teams not only damage your team, but you also take damage from him damaging your team. So, you know, it is one of those things where you're not going to use him as a standard tank against everything, because he can quickly destroy your own team on top of what the other team's doing. So, make sure he's good for a sleep team, and that's pretty much about it. I wouldn't put him against Vortex. I wouldn't put him against Lucifer. I wouldn't put him against a West. There's a lot of guys I wouldn't put him against because he's just going to cause your team to die faster. Just be warned of that. Then we have Jacob. Now, Jacob is a great tank. He's free from the arena. Probably one of the ones people trying to decide on, you know, do I go here or do I go Spar, who got an upgrade recently coming out. I'll talk about that later. He's not a bad tank. He has some great uses. He can stay alive for a long time. But in the grand scheme of things, a lot of people see Jacob as kind of that third best tank because of his ability to sometimes leave the front line, which can sometimes be bad, because when he jumps to the back, he doesn't necessarily always kill them. It allows people on the other team to come to your team, which is not a good thing. So he's usually not a single base team. Does great with the Magic team, obviously, because of lifesteal if you put him with the Merlin. But he is still kind of squishy. Outside of his initial set, you know, here I'm at, you know, basically 8.7k health, which is a lot less than some of the other guys at similar levels. So, you know, I mean, I'm looking at a Jacob who's gold star, 88, who's only got 10,000 more hit points than Slash does, you know, who's only at 3-star now. So obviously you can see that, yeah, there's definitely a difference in hit points. So he does die quick sometimes, which makes him kind of undesirable. So he usually is an off tank. Usually he's ran with 2 tanks. Great when he's paired with Kaiser, because he gets the magic buff from being, don't do that to me, from being a beast, from being the animal. So it's kind of a cool little thing. Just kind of know that ahead of time. Usually you're pretty much limited to the one item because you want him to lifesteal and stay alive. Now, Nezu's gotten a buff. I got a video I'm going to show me clearing like 142 or something with Nezu, and pretty much Nezu is a boss. Nezu is great against teams, blocks projectiles. The new ultimate fix allows Nezu that if it doesn't stop an ultimate, he still dives in and does the damage and pop-up. Because otherwise it made that ultimate pretty much worthless if you didn't get lucky. You know, if you were too early to the party or you were too late to the party, it was nothing. So, combined with the ability to stay alive, whether or not you use the healing cloak, or you'll see a lot of people use the frost whale. You know, for that extra person out there that's just gathering attacks, which is really kind of a cool thing. A lot of people don't use this enough. You get two of him out there doing what he does. I mean, you know, suddenly they're both blocking attacks. It's pretty beefy. So I like Nezu. I think it's going to be a stronger tank, and we're going to have to see how it fully plays out. Now, there is some squishiness to it in some ways. Again, at 92,000 health, it's not near as high, but then again, combined with the defensive skills as well as the ability to heal and the skills which increases the armor and magic resist, you have a tank that can really make himself very beefy and tanky. Don't give up on Nezu. If you haven't got, you know, him, might be one to look down the road, but if you do, you know what I'm talking about. Wait a second. I just did a legendary. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not supposed to do that. I apologize. I got carried away. Pulan. I've always loved Frosty the Snowman here, and I love the awakening, especially now that they changed it so he uses it a little bit better, so he stays alive, which lets him get his ultimate off. I still struggle sometimes with whether or not I'm going to run the decreasing in the attack speed, or if I'm going to run the immune to stun and silence and imprison effects. I like his ability to decrease dodge, which really works great against your people like Kaiser that are kind of built around that. You know, you also have the ability to cause damage to surround people, and you know, of course, it increases his armor and reduces more dodge by his team, which is always nice. And then, of course, your Blizzard Blast. You know, who doesn't love the fact that you're going to freeze everybody in a block of ice for a second, which helps your team kill them faster. He's not usually as big as some of the others, again, because the health points just aren't there. Combined with a somewhat mediocre magic resist and armor, it's just not as nice. And there's no real way you're going to get a lot of extra armor out of here. Even, you know, if you say, I'm going to use this, I'm picking up 13. 13? Yeah. So, you know, it's usually, again, an off tank or as the 6th position in a hero brawl, so that when he drops onto the battlefield, he freezes everybody to help your team. Would love to see a little bit more love, but then again, he might become too powerful if his hit points were increased too much. Now, Seeley is someone that got showcased, if you remember the Dwizzle video. I still like Seeley. The problem with Seeley, for the most part, is, well, the skill sets aren't terrible bad. You know, obviously, there's a knock-up rate, which can knock someone up and, you know, interrupt their ultimate. The timing's terrible. You know, would I rather have her sit on it and use it when someone was catching theirs? Yes, but the computer doesn't do that. It just blows it at any time on the lowest person or the closest person. So it's really kind of, you know, really? The fell swoop, it's not bad, but the damage is not really high. Again, she's a tank, but she's more of a, you know, I'm supposed to be doing some kind of damage stuff. So it's kind of lacking in some ways. The shock drive, again, this sends some damage out in front, so it does give her a little bit more aid, but again, it's kind of minimalistic. And we are talking about a tank, but I'm talking about a tank that's not fully appreciated in her tankiness. Battle Poise increases the dodge, which is nice. And then, of course, here you have, whenever she dodges, she goes into increasing more damage in her attack power and ability power, which is really nice. But the problem is we're facing an anti-dodge meta team. So either you have to use the captain's skill of agility and hope to not face that, or you have to run an off tank with someone like Kaiser, who, you know, it makes a good team, but then you're giving up 2 tanks that, you know, it's just, she struggles to find her true power. I don't know how we could truly fix this, what we could do to make her better, because the armor and the magic resist are really low. You even saw Pulan was higher, and the damage just isn't there. So I don't know what I would do to make her better without making her too powerful, but she needs a slight tweak / buff to make her more usable in the grand scheme of life. Now, Tartarus is a phenomenal tank. Doesn't get seen a lot in action, one, because most people don't have him 5-starred or above, but he actually can do a great job in tankiness. He's got pretty good health. His gear isn't, you know, any good basically until Orange 2, and that kind of hurts him in some ways, but what he does is pretty awesome. Now, obviously, his ultimate allows you to really help beat the team up even more. You're going to rip out souls. These guys take damage, which is great when you have an AE team. but it also lowers their attack damage and their ability power by 3.4k. I mean, that's huge. And they receive 41% of the damage done to the pet. So if a pet takes 10 grand, the owner takes, 4.1. I mean, that's kind of nice, isn't it? Especially if you're doing AE damage. Death Bloom deals AoE damage to nearby enemies and lowers their movement speed. That's kind of hokey. Who cares about their movement speed? But it's pretty good damage. I mean, you see he's doing 4.7 and Seeley's doing 1.7. I mean, the damage is just hard to compare. Night Terror, basically, a random person gets this. It casts Death Bloom, which is that level thing there. So it's doing damage and slows them down. It's kind of nice. It can't be attacked, and it's there. So it's doing damage, causing more damage in an AE fashion. So, I mean, he's doing damage, and he's tanky. Finally, the Soul Terror. It raises attack strength, and so when someone goes to sleep, he immediately pulls out a soul. So it does some great damage. It does some good damage, and if when combined with like a Pagani, helps you kill them even faster. Now, that said, Tartarus doesn't see a lot of action again because most people don't, have him or run him. He does better than people believe. I've seen a few videos of a fully raised Tartarus, however you want to say his name, Tartarus, and he's great. He's tanky. He does a great job. I mean, his armor and his magic resist, they kind of suffer, but his skills really help him. Works decent as a second off tank, but a lot of people aren't going to run that. But if you put him on a sleep team, oh my gosh, it just gets insane with all the souls that are out there, especially if you're running a full sleep team with Pagani and with Jasmine. But other than that, you're just not usually going to see him. Laura, she does great against an AP team. The problem is I don't see a lot of AP teams or full AP teams. Usually it's a mixture, or you see a lot of meta, people running AD teams with maybe just a Vortex. Then at that point, she really falls off. She really needs to be facing a full AP team. Her ability to tank is pretty good. She has some really great ability to lower the other people's power as well as her own. But again, she's got to get your ultimate. Now, of course, she's doing all things that are decreasing their ability powers. She's doing things that's increasing her armor and her shields, and I mean, so she's making herself more tanky, but she is designed to be anti-magic resist. Outside of that, you're kind of left going, what am I going to do? Now, of course, the cool thing is she gets Lightning Blast, which does damage, but the problem is she's a tank, and when she dies, you don't get the damage anymore. So she's not a high tier, and she's only really good against AP. You don't want to run her against an AD team because she's going to get blown up, and you're not going to do anything to the other side of the team with her debuffs or skills. So she's kind of a trick pony. If you're not facing that magic team, don't bring her out of the stable. Now, Yuan is the beloved. Hey, I start on a new server. I spend $5. I get Yuan. What's not to love? 3-star hero. Does great throughout the beginning. Starts to fall off. And a lot of that's because people don't 5-star him or above. He is part of the Wings of Origin team, so he does do a great job there. But Yuan has improved with some current buffs. His health is not a true tank per se. But, again, he does do a good amount of damage, and he can interrupt that back line. Now with his new ultimate pushback, where he actually brings the person into, depending on how the lineup is, he can bring him into the middle or the front row, which allows your people to kill them faster. But he's not a tank. Do not think of him as a tank. Never put him as the only guy up front and then watch your team get destroyed when he leaves the front line to go to the back line. So it's finding the team that you want him to be with. Again, he is a Wings of Origin, so you will often see him as what we call the poor man's Wings of Origin team, because you want him to do the damage that this does provide. Again, he's not a solo tank. You need an off tank with him, which kind of limits you because a lot of times people don't want to run 2 tanks. They want to run 1 tank, is what it is. Uther is actually a good hero. You need to get him awoken. He's one of those free heroes that you can get early in the game. After you pass a certain number of stages, get a number of, I don't know, level, whatever they're called. I'm going to have to look now. It's going to frustrate me. Somebody's going to comment on my video about it too. I don't want to go there. Get out of there. Campaign. Stars, that's what it is. Stars. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. So Uther, when you get so many stars, you unlock him and go from there. Let's scroll down. Overall, he's not bad, but your problem is, of course, he is kind of like that physical team. He's going to physical absorption only. So it's great when you're facing a physical team, but I want to look at what his shield actually absorbs. It's not a ton. I'm thinking, man, if I've got a guy that I'm going to use like this, I need his shield to absorb like 15,000 physical on everybody, which means against magic teams, it's worthless, but against AD teams, hey, it's pretty awesome. Now, he does have a thing where he can heal self for himself and his teammates. He does have a stun that does a little bit of damage, which is kind of nice. And then here you have the ability to increase your armor, which makes you good against physical teams. After this, he increases the passive hero for these heroes only. But the problem is, again, he's a physical guy, and he doesn't have enough of a physical block. He needs more of a physical block. That's what he needs. You know, his item choices are, again, the whole meh. Nothing really great until you get to Orange 2. But then again, you know, he just needs some loves. He needs some serious accretion. Even with his awakening, he needs a better physical block, which he does not have. Now, Spar does have an awakening coming up. It has not popped up here on it. I got a bunch of soul stones. Look at that. I'm not going to turn this into a video like that. But anyways, his items, again, they're kind of okay, but really he's part of the Wings of Origin team. And it's going to be interesting to see how his changes impacts his use currently in the game. So for his new little ultimate, or not ultimate, but awakening, basically what's going to happen is in extreme mode, all skills are improved. His battle shield skill here, bar slam, basically is going to throw enemies back and away. When he uses his blood axe, it's basically going to make them bleed, causing continuous damage, and his spar storm is going to give extra bonus to critical hits. Up here, this is that there. So you're basically turning him into a damaging monster. Now again, magic teams are still going to tear him apart. Often again, he is still ran as an off tank, but when you see the fact that he is part of the Wings of Origin team, you could throw him and Yuan together, drop a ton of damage along with all the other Wings of Origin guys, hope they're dead, and then watch him tear them apart as he does damage. I think obviously when you get him higher leveled, when you get him geared out, and when you get him on the right team, he's great. The problem, of course, is getting him to that level, getting him geared out, and getting him on the right team. He is not going to be used the majority of the time, again, as a main tank, but he is a great damage off-tank guy. If you have Lucifer, he's a great guy because he crits a lot, especially with his awakening. I'm interested to see how this plays out and how many teams suddenly see Spar get raised and put on their team. Now, as a beginning person, if I'm picking a team and I'm picking a hero and I'm like, am I going to pick Jacob or am I going to pick Spar? Well, obviously, if I'm building a free team, I'm probably going to pick Jacob because I want a tank that's going to help me. The problem is into the game, I may not use Jacob and I might have wished I had Spar. So, the choice will really come down to you. Am I going to build a tank that is damaging or am I going to build a tank that is life-stealing and, you know, somewhat tanky? But I think Spar is going to see a lot more action now that he has an awakening. It's going to make the decision a lot tougher for new heroes to kind of go from there. Now, Lee is that guy. Everybody thinks, man, I'd love to see him do more. But he is so stinking squishy. His damage is okay, but it's nothing to write home about. Yes, he's part of the sleep team. We've seen him with a little bit more action because of the sleep team, but it's just not enough. You put him against somebody as the main tank, he's going to get burst down. He dies quick. I mean, he dies quick. Now, even with an increased dodge, which doesn't mean anything, especially if they've got a Coco or anything else on the other team, you're going to get killed fast. Now, he does put somebody to sleep, which again works well with the sleep team. He does regen some health for himself when there's some sleeping enemies out there and damages them. But unless you're building a 5-man team with Tartarus, Jasmine, Pagani, Lee, you know, and a healer or something, you're really kind of getting to this point where you're like, when am I going to use this guy? They're going to have to do something major with him if you're going to see a lot more action. Now, I've seen some teams with him, and he does okay. But for the average guy raising him up, he's not your main tank. You're not going to build him as your main tank. You're going to go with a Chavez or a Kaiser or a Jacob, because this guy can't control the rest of the game for you. You need one of those guys to make it through Crystal Dungeon, the Crusades, and everything else. So, great idea. Very limited in scope. Just not a lot of use outside of that particular scope. We come to Leon. Now, I love Leon. I love the fact that you can now get his soul stones from the Magic Squares event. A lot of people... I love Leon. Don't mind the level 1 skill here, by the way. I have him on another server if you watch my videos. He's great against backline guys. He's going to taunt the Yuan off. He's going to taunt the smoke off. He's going to bring it to it. But the problem is his skills and his items and his stuff don't continue to work together. His items don't really give you the way they're supposed to. He's a life-stealing guy. He's supposed to do damage. He's supposed to heal himself. But he doesn't heal himself like he's supposed to. I mean, it's weird. And if he doesn't get big, then he's going to get killed. So he's got to get big. But then again, your percentage is real minimal here. 15%. I mean, come on. The guy depends on this to survive. So it's kind of a hokey thing. It needs to be 25% would be my opinion. You need that. But then again, maybe that's too much and suddenly he becomes overpowered. I don't know. I'd love to see more use out of Leon. You'll see him on a few teams. I've seen him used as a counter pick against smoke and everything. But he's just limited in his ability against most teams. He just can't handle the constant beat down. And he really needs 2 tankers to face or something like that, so that when he's using his attacks, he's hitting multiple people to regen more health. I like him. I love the idea, but gosh, he just needs some more help. Bev Adir is not a bad hero. Again, you know, one of those kind of freebies you get at the beginning. His ultimate's kind of cool. I mean, you know, the more health they're missing, the more damage he does. The Kingsguard's kind of nice in the fact that it's going to give your guys armor and ability power and increase the attack damage. And even if he dies, it's still there. You know, he does a cleaver that's kind of in a physical attack. You know, he gets himself more armor. And then, of course, here increases the dodge chance. But again, the cool thing about that is it gives them a chance to being immune from stun, silence, or in prison. But the problem that you kind of see is, in the grand scheme of life, what he brings to the party is limited in his ability to truly tank and hold armor outside of an AD team that you're facing. You know, you gotta have a full AD team. He's got to survive. I don't know. He's not bad. I've seen him with some good use in some teams. But in the comparison of other guys out there, you know, it's just as easy to raise a Kaiser. It's just as easy to raise a Chavez and have, I think, a better, well-rounded tank than a Bev Adir. I do like his awakening skill, but again, you know, it's just kind of one of those things. Now, obviously, he's lower level over here, so looking at that's really not beneficial. But, you know, tell me your thoughts on him. I don't know. Now, Gerber's come a long way. I still don't know if I'd say he's full, great enough to tank for everybody else, but he has gotten an awakening skill, which does help him out because, again, if you see I love how they even call it the Rhine Shield. I've seen Reinhardt from Overwatch. But I don't know. We still sometimes see this where we don't think he gets the shield every time he casts a spell. And sometimes I think we wonder if his armor is really reflecting back as we think it is. But he's getting better. Now with the Awakening, a lot more guys have used him. Some people say they've seen it coming to the point where they think he's probably approaching the top 4 tanks out there. But again, he's legendary, and I don't want to get into it because I already did a legendary video. And that brings Chavez back up to where we started. I'm going to finish here. So those are the tanks. Those are some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses. In order for them to change who's being used, they're going to have to change the people themselves. Now, obviously, next month rolls out a free tank starting tomorrow. For the next month, I don't know how she's going to be, but all we can do is wait and see. I don't even think they have it out there. Ooh, there it is, Vala. Look at there. There it is, Vala. It's a magic-based attack. It's a front row tank. It uses Frost. You know, here we go. The shields herself and her teammates. Reduce the damage for the next 6 attacks as low as 1 point. And then after 6 attacks or when time runs out, and it protects teams from stuns and knockbacks, which could be good against certain teams like, Vortex or any of the others that do a lot of stuns, or Kaisers, things like that. Her Snow Crash becomes immune to most damage and disabling effects and then strikes an enemy. So again, it's kind of nice. You can't be slapped or stuff like that. Of course, you notice they don't say that in that because silence is the overrated, or sleep's the overrated thing. But it says if she's hit by a stun, silence, knockback, airborne skill during defensive stance, she will hit an area of enemies and silence them. So that's kind of nice to free silence if she's in this state when she gets hit. Frostbite basically summons a blade of ice under the feet of the furthest enemy from her and dealing AoE damage, and adds a layer of shield to herself for each enemy hit. So if you face a 3 or 4 backline team, she's going to gain some nice shielding from that because she may end up hitting 3 or 4 of them. And then finally, she receives energy each time a teammate takes a stun, airborne, or knockback effect. So this could see her ultimate be popped a lot depending upon how many times you're facing someone that is getting knocked airborne or stunned. You don't want to run Edwin against her, obviously, because that's going to pump her up. Pump up the volume. Anyways, which is going to make her cast a shield for herself and nearby teammates, which lowers the damage and prevents them from that kind of thing. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I'm interested to see how she turns out. So there's the tanks. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will talk to you all later.